Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos, hello my friends, my name is Jed Lee, and you are listening to Reading with Your Kids, coming to you from the vibrant and book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston, Massachusetts. This is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. Our mission is to help families grow closer, stronger, and kinder through the magic of reading together. And we're thrilled to have you with us on that journey. Help us spread the joy by sharing the podcast with the people you love. Tell your kids, teachers, school librarians, and neighbors that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Player FM. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. We have a wonderful show lined up for you today. First up, Kevin Russell is here to celebrate his new picture book. It's called That's Not A Cupcake. And later in the show, Jake Bull will be here to celebrate Everywhere and All the Time.
Hey guys, author Ashley Mosley here, and I teamed up with author, educator, and scientist Dr. Michael Wendelspeck, and together we are bringing the wildlife of Belize right into your hands. Kids will meet real animals like jaguars and tapirs in Nacho House Cat and Why Did the Tapir Cross the Street? Both books beautifully illustrated by local student artists. In these books, we will learn the challenges that these animals face in the wild. For teachers, Inspired Adventures offers K-5 toolkits packed with age-appropriate activities that connect literacy, science, and conservation. Our newest book, This Birdie Told Me, landed on the shelves on September 23rd. Visit inspiredadventures.com to get your copy. Let's keep the adventure going.
This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Trumpet, the Miracle Wolf Pup series. There's a brand new book in the series, and we're so excited to tell you all about it. Trumpet becomes a mom. In this exciting book, Trumpet and Lighthawk, now a bonded pair, start their own family with their very first litter of pups. Families can read together, schools can explore the importance of wolf packs and conservation, and Trumpet fans everywhere can celebrate this milestone in her incredible journey. Grab your copy today. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, select bookstores, and the Wolf Conservation Center, where Trumpet and her family live. Plus, 50% of all profits go right back to supporting the Wolf Conservation Center, with more donated to Lighthawk Conservation Flying. So grab your book today and have a group haul for Trumpet and her family. My friends, I think we are going to have an enlightened conversation. Our guest is coming to us from Southern California. He is the author of a great new picture book. It's called That's Not A Cupcake. He's also the driving force behind RadicalEnlightenment.com. Please welcome to the show, Kevin Russell. Kevin, how are you?
Thanks so much, Jed. I'm doing great. It's great to speak with you today. I appreciate it.
Super to have you on. I'm looking into, through the magic of technology, I'm looking into Kevin's space, and there is a copy of That's Not A Cupcake over his shoulders. And it seems like your character is holding an elephant or a rhinoceros or some large creature that is definitely not a cupcake.
Definitely not a cupcake. Exactly. Yeah. It's
So
a
tell
book
us-
of imagination, really.
Awesome. Look, so tell us about the book. Who are the characters we're going to meet?
Yeah. So it's kind of it's funny because it was actually a story that happened to us. It was a joke that happened one Saturday morning when our daughter was really young. And it just stuck in the back of my head, like, this could be a really good, experience to share. And so children's book stuck in my mind, and she's now 19. She's actually the illustrator of the book. And it's really a mom, dad, and daughter having a Saturday morning adventure. And those are kind of the main characters. And then a lot of other non-cupcake characters are introduced along the way as well.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that, what started as a little joke between you and your young daughter, it grew into a collaboration that is now out there in the world for families to share.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Yeah. It was a long time coming, but in some way a perfect fit.
Uh-huh.
And in my previous iteration of a career, I was in design. I was in UI UX, so human computer interface application software websites, designing the interfaces for those interactions. And so I was working with illustrators, designers, developers, and there were opportunities kind of along the way. But one thing or another was always, it was not the right time, looking for an illustrator to work with to bring this to life. And being able to kind of step back and pull back the lens, everything happened in perfect order because when the time was right, our daughter she's now in school for art school for illustration. And we had this space and it was kind of a perfect time, all the perfect storm of all the components coming together. So we were able to collaborate, and I don't think it could have been illustrated by anybody else, to be honest.
That's awesome. I love how nature kind of makes things happen for us in the right way.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I was thinking about the project and the gestation and the evolution of it and the time frame of it. And there were a couple of things that really stuck out that were kind of powerful factors or components that came through along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so the very first one was that the power of presence. Because if I was stressed out or if I was worrying about work or I had to, Saturday morning, I got to get to the chores or do whatever, I wouldn't have had the presence to be in the moment, to have this kind of like joyous, expansion, explosion, fun joke happen. With our daughter, being an artist, I love to draw. And so we connected in art, and I also like football. And so Sundays, my wife was a yoga teacher for a long time. And so she'd be teaching classes. My daughter and I would be doing art projects, and I'd have the game on mute, just kind of watching it in the background. So it was kind of there's the presence, and then there's this collaboration, cooperation, approach where it's like, it's a win-win. I love drawing. I love spending time with you, and, the game's on in the background. Mm-hmm. And then timing. Timing was the other big lesson of not forcing it, waiting for it to be the right time, and just, kind of being part of the allowing of it coming together.
Yeah. It takes a bit of courage, though, to be able to allow these forces, whether you feel it's God or nature or whatever, to kind of work through us. Because a lot of times humans, we like to be in charge. We think we like to be in charge. But
yeah. That's the truth. Yeah. And for me, I mean, it's been, multifaceted, multiple lessons of, in different iterations in life, whether personal or professional, really trying to force something through. And it's never really worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the more I push, the more I try, things get in the way, or it's not quite as, it doesn't live up to the expectation that we might have, or the outcome might not be what we had hoped or expected. And then along with that, almost inevitably, is the pendulum swing to disappointment, frustration, anxiety, stress, whatever else, may have you. And so for me, it has been this practice that I've cultivated over time of becoming less reactive. In my own journey as a transformation guide, and in my own kind of healing journey in that vein, really stepping into that openness and curiosity of, I wonder what's going to happen next, mm-hmm. while taking steps towards actually making it come to fruition in real life. So it's definitely finding a balance, and balance is very rarely symmetrical. It's not necessarily somebody sitting on a meditation mat going Om and being completely balanced. It's finding the balance in the asymmetry of life, where, there's always comings and goings and doings and needs that have to be taken care of. But then finding the space to be within, kind of the frenzy of life is one of those art forms that I've been practicing for a while.
Yeah. I've mentioned here on the show that a lot of what has happened in a lot of the great things that has happened in my life kind of happened, I credit divine inspiration. And but it was never at the point where it's like, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to have a chit chat with God, and He's going to let me know what's the next step. It was always like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to do things my way to the point where the wheels have come off the thing, and I don't know what to do. What's next? And all of a sudden, it's like, really? That's That's
Right.
next.
Yeah. This is the outcome. Okay. I'm not quite sure. Well, let's lean into it. Yeah.
And
There's a quote. What is it? Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and any time I've leaned into it, including starting this podcast, it's always worked out for the best.
I love it. And to your point, there is, whether we call it a leap of faith or, going off of an inner knowing, even if everything else in our world is conditioning us or influencing us in a different direction. Being able to click into that knowing, that inspiration, that deeper maybe well that we're just starting to explore and recognize that we have within us. It can be a little disconcerting because we're getting so much outside influence of you should do this or you need to do this or this worked for me, so you should do this. Mm-hmm. And so it is kind of that, I call it like a universal trust fall in slow motion because it's not, we don't get caught right away. It's this slow motion, but then the action I find is really the key, so for you, just jumping in, doing, hitting the ground running, I would assume along your journey, there were moments of like, is this going to work? What am I even doing? What's happening as things are building? And then you look back and you see how far you've come. And then it's kind of like, oh, well, it wasn't that bad in retrospect, but in the journey, there is that kind of, tension or struggle, potentially. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. No, as I look back, I came out of high school and college thinking that, big part of me was thinking, well, I'm eventually going to become a Catholic priest. And I had very wise counsel that a very wise old Jesuit priest sat down with me and said, if God wants you to be a priest when you're 18, He'll want you to be a priest when you're 26. So go out and have some fun. He didn't use that F word, but he did. Basically what he was saying. And I went into
Go explore life.
Yes, exactly. And I went into human services that I thought was kind of related, and experienced a lot of joy, a lot of success, but also a lot of misery and pain. And but as I look back now, after God kind of put me on the path that I took for the next 35 years, I look back and I go, oh, well, that stuff prepared me for what's happening. It literally prepared me. Yeah. There was a moment in my life where there was a crisis and I was able to handle it because of that past experience. And I was able to go back and go, oh, that's why you had me do that. For this. Thank you very much.
It's such an art form. Like, it is to me, it's this practice, for some of us, it's always there. Just the inner knowing, that guidance, it's on the bat phone, it's on, speed dial. And for others of us, there is that, approach where, the universe, God, whoever we might perceive, our personal source to be, I'll use the universe. So that, the first time the universe speaks, it whispers. The second time it shouts. And then the third time it, shakes your world to its foundation sometimes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the messages are there. It just depends on, how open we are to receiving them. That kind of determines our experience on the journey.
Absolutely. You had shared a question. I wonder what's going to happen next. And I love that. One of the things that I'm really proud of helping my daughter understand, especially, is she's really good at when you're in a moment when there's sort of this, not necessarily an emergency happen, but when something's happening and it ain't quite right and it's a problem, she's able to sit back and say, this is going to make for a good story someday.
I love it.
And so I love that she learned that, and it's something I hope I helped her learn it. I'd love to get to the point where she adds, I wonder what's going to happen next into her life. And I want to, now as I'm approaching 100, I definitely want to do that and add that to my life and think and sit down and really be mindful thinking, I wonder what's going to happen next in my life.
And for me, it's an evolution. I mean, just like anything. And, my goal is I want to be continually expanding, evolving, and learning up until my last breath. Because I feel like that's kind of what the isness of life is. We can go and have adventures in corporations or, titans of industry or, maxing out our metrics in one vertical. But I like to have success across the board and have that tide lift all ships. Mm-hmm. So I've never really wanted to sacrifice a relationship for financial success, mm-hmm. or sacrifice my my sense of well-being or my personal beliefs or alignment with things that are not maybe aligning with that. Maybe if it is, there might be a financial benefit, but there's these other concessions that I might have to make. Mm-hmm. And we kind of touched on as far as, that relationship internally, whether we call it co-creation or, walking with, whatever it is. But I found the more present I can stay with using kind of staying open and curious as a cue for that. And then also looking at it through the lens and shifting the paradigm of the way I think towards everything is happening for me. Nothing's happening to me. So what's here for me? So I can get kind of pan for the gold in the experience, much like your daughter mentioned, like, oh, this is going to make a great story someday. So it's approaching the challenges of life with a little bit more lightness and staying out of those reactive states as much. Our systems are really powerful. The mind body is amazing, and it really just wants to keep us safe. So for me, it's a process and practice of transforming our relationship to our interface, to the mind body, to the thoughts that we have, to our reactions, to our beliefs, and just, holding up the mirror. Like, does this serve me? Does this way of thinking, being, or doing, is it serving me, or is it keeping me stuck in a certain way? Is it limiting me in my ability to connect with myself, connect with others? So those are always, those are some thoughts that have been practices that I've been cultivating over years and continue to evolve and grow, with them as I do.
Yeah. So some people might be listening to this conversation and go, okay, all this is really good, valuable stuff, but how does it relate to That's Not a Cupcake?
I love it. It's, if we boil it really down to its essence, for me, it all comes back to love. Mm-hmm. Whether it's loving ourselves, being able to connect or appreciate an experience of unconditional love. And even if it's something that we haven't been afforded in life, being able to imagine what that would be. And and bring that sensation within us, even though it might be challenging. Mm-hmm. And, at the end of the day, the book is really a story of love. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the great connector. And if we look at it from, more of an energetic or absolute standpoint, more of kind of a electromagnetic or energy approach. Like, if we're looking at an electrical outlet, it's either on or it's off. We are in flow or we're in resistance. And resistance is important for our electrical circuit. Otherwise, we'd be blowing circuits all over the place. But when we experience resistance in our lives, it tends to accumulate and build up, and then it tends to become a driving force in our lives. So if we're looking at it through that lens, in my experience, it's either a connection to love when we're in flow, or it's a disconnection from love when we're in resistance or maybe attachment or fear or scarcity. And so I kind of check in on myself daily, and then also obviously with the clients that I work with, are we in a present, flowing, connected to love state, or are we in a fear, scarcity, uncertain, less than stable place? And if that's where we find ourselves, we can take steps to move towards that place of presence and love in short order. We don't have to stay in that state of dis-ease as long as most of us do, unfortunately. But for me, at the end of the day, it always comes back to that, the loving ourselves sometimes, which is, more challenging, loving others, which I think, most of us, spend our lives, exploring. And then just love of the moment, being present in the moment to be able to let it evolve into whatever it's going to evolve into, kind of in that, speaking to that co-creation approach.
Yeah. It's funny. I got my hair done, and you're looking at me. And you go, "What hair?" And so I was with my stylist yesterday. I have a stylist
Yeah.
at Super Pets, and she's been
I
taking
love
care
it.
of my hair for a couple of years now, and she's great. And she was wearing a shirt yesterday that said, "I love me." And I said, "That's really awesome that you do that." And
Yeah.
I'm thinking as you were talking there are a lot of parents out there that find themselves worried about the bills, worried about what's going on with my kids. Do my kids love me? Am I going to be able to take care of them? And what steps, because it's a lot easier said than done, but what kind of practices can those folks do to help them just get to the point where they can breathe, sit down with their kids with a book like That's Not a Cupcake, and just enjoy the moment of reading together and just melt into each other?
Without having the laundry list of need tos, have tos, the to-do list in the back of the mind, 100%. And you absolutely nailed it. I say this all the time. A lot of these tools that I use with my clients, and I've worked with kids as young as 8 and adults as old as 89. And the through line that I like to share with everyone is a lot of this is simple, but it's not all easy. And that's where the opportunity and the challenge is. So at a baseline, what I always recommend is nervous system regulation, because most of us are walking around in dysregulated states of reactive fight, flight, freeze responses. That autonomic nervous system, which is our planning and protection function of the body, really is on overdrive for most of us most of the time, unfortunately. One, I think because we're not necessarily given the tools on how to, like reset our system and come back to that type of place of being. And the other is this influence of culture and society, where we're getting more and more in this go, 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 do, do, do. If you're not grinding and cranking and burning the candle at both ends, you're what are you even doing? You're not showing up right, so to speak. So the first step for me is nervous system regulation. And I've got a program where it's a 5-minute exercise in the morning and about a 10-minute exercise in the evening. And it's some body movement, so some borrowing from Eastern and Western cultures as far as neurosomatic, so mind and body balancing and regulation, and using breath work to really break through whatever the stressor is that's consuming us and giving us a little bit more space internally. So maybe we can look at things from a more subjective lens instead of it being so objective, where it's like, more objective lens than subjective, where we can internally just take a little bit of a pause, to step back just a touch and recognize, oh, I can send that email tomorrow morning. That's okay. Or you know what? It's okay if we take 15 minutes and then jump into dinner. That'll be okay. We don't need to stay to this, regimented schedule. But it's hard to be able to kind of claim that opportunity, open and curious. What's the opportunity there for us? It's hard for us to see it when we're so in the weeds or so in the forest of life that we're not giving ourselves that space to pull back and come into the present moment. Yeah. So first step, nervous system regulation. And then from there, there's a lot of other tools that we can utilize to really start transforming our relationship, not only to ourselves and our past experiences, but transforming our relationship to our present world and reorienting in real time. So we might, other people might be like, all right, what's going on? You're doing something different. Things are seeming a little easier. Or you used to be so stressed. You used to have this like furrowed brow, and now you're just kind of, it seems like just a more placid look on your face. What are you doing differently? And so sometimes the shifts are subtle, but we get better at what we practice. And so our systems are practicing 24/7 to keep us safe. So if we interject a couple of these resets, it's informing our system, oh, hey, Jed's got his hands back on the wheel of these really powerful mind-body systems we're in. Or, hey, oh, Kevin's taking that breath instead of just grinding through. Oh, okay. Maybe we don't have to spike those negative thoughts or worry thoughts or, need to, have to thoughts as much anymore, because we're seeing that, the spark that is us, that essence that is us, is more engaged with regulating the system, as opposed to letting everything else outside do the regulating for us, which is unfortunately unregulated.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's something that is intimidating to a lot of people. The idea that, I can be in charge of me, and you really can be. You really, and you really should be. You really. No.
Yeah, it's either we're going to live our life, or in my own kind of healing journey, as I was moving through a lot of those noisy thoughts, the need tos, the have tos, the shoulds, I was coming to realize that wasn't even my voice. That was the voice of a teacher or a parent or an uncle or a coach. And so again, it's that outside influence that we adopt as our own. And then we just run that as our operating system. And then we wonder why we're stressed or frustrated or anxious or depressed. It's because we haven't given ourselves that grace or that space to really even explore it, which again can be nerve-wracking, because we're stepping out of what we might consider the norm. We might be shifting the way we think, feel, and show up in life, which can be sometimes disconcerting to others that have an expectation of us showing up in a certain way. But if I'm looking at it, through that kind of, as we said, looking back on the journey, was it all worth it? 100%. Was it challenging and stressful and sometimes nail biting and nerve wracking along the way? Of course. That's kind of that balance in life of being, stepping into that creatorship role and really laying down our tenets, laying down what is important to us, almost our declaration or our, rules and values, that a lot of times corporations and businesses are good at creating. And I think it's important for us to create those for us individually as well. It's like, what do we stand for? What's really important to us, exclusive of outside influence? And that's where I find, there is great responsibility that comes along with that approach, but there's also immense freedom and connection and greater opportunity for contentment on the journey, even if we're not there just yet.
A couple of things you said really struck home. I think one of the things that we want to make sure that we prevent is that we don't want to be one of those voices that stress out our kids.
Yeah.
And I know I was guilty of it at times with my son. Like, dude, you got to do some. You got to do some. You got to get in a good school. I mean, what's going on? And that's not healthy. It's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for you. And the other thing, I think it's important. If you're out there, if you're listening to this and you're going, that stuff, that ain't for me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's for your kid. And maybe these are some skills that you can teach your kid now that they're young, that you don't have to buy it, but if your kids see you trying these things and regulating and trying to be present and being in their life and not being that voice that drives them crazy, maybe they'll grow up and to be a little bit healthier than they would otherwise. And you'll be healthier too.
And to me, exactly. It's a win-win, really. And regardless of what we embrace or what we're attracted to, as far as, a tool, a technique, a practice, or whatever we label it. And it's funny because a lot of my clients are female or lean towards the feminine side of the spectrum. And a lot of the messages I get are, oh my gosh, I wish my husband would do this, or I wish my boyfriend or my dad or my brother would jump into this space. And so a lot of times I'll start off giving them those nervous system regulating tools. And I just tell them it's biohacking. You're biohacking the system. You're regulating the system. So to me, it's not so much, I'd encourage everybody to not get hung up on the terms, but to approach it with an openness of, okay, what's here for me? Is there something here for me in this conversation? If not, Godspeed, live your life. I hope nothing for the best. But if there is something, take that opportunity, because that could be the sign that's for you in this moment.
Yeah. I love it. And I think, again, going back, I think a great way to start getting into this stuff is maybe practicing some of those reset moments right before you sit down to read with your kids a book like That's Not A Cupcake. And maybe create your own That's Not A Cupcake joke and moment with your kids.
Exactly. Be able to just step into that, in that present space of creativity, of imagination, and at the end of the day, love. And, you know, especially if we're busy, our kids are picking up on that. They're picking up on that stress, even though it's not communicated. Mm-hmm. If we are feeling a certain way, I mean, they're literally picking up that energy. You know, we're not to get into the science of it, but our electromagnetic fields, we are electromagnetic, and our electromagnetic fields can stretch 12 to 15 feet in all directions. So if we're sharing space with someone in the room, we're picking up that information from their system. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you know, leading by example, I think, is the best way. And that's really what got us into doing any of this work. Our daughter was symptomatic. She was showing signs of anxiety. And we took her to a doctor, and the doctor, fortunately, was practicing a form of subconscious inquiry and intervention. And within a 7-minute conversation and 1 or 2 arm muscle tests, he helped our daughter come to the awareness of, when mom and dad fight, I get stressed, and this is what I do. And so he asked her to, you know, wait in the waiting room. He turned to my wife. He said, she's fine. You two need to do the work. And that's really it at the end of the day, you know. And for me, the awareness is number one. If we're not aware of what we're bringing to the table, then we're just going to keep bringing it to the table. So self-awareness is really that first step of, how am I showing up in this moment, in this environment, whether it's work, whether it's, you know, our home, our family of origin, the family we grew up in, or our present family. And just checking in, like, okay, I'm coming from work, I'm going home. Perfect, like, to your point, perfect place to inject that reset. Mm-hmm. So we're coming into that next phase of the day with more presence, with more quality of being, instead of, you know, accumulating that stress over time that just builds and builds and builds.
Yeah, I love it. I could have saved myself a lot of time if you had come on the show 30 years ago when I was first becoming a parent. I sat down
you and me both.
I started doing a journal, and I said, you know, my wife said, you yell too much. And I go, I don't yell too much. And I sat down and I goes, okay, I'm just going to keep a record if I yell during one, you know, the day. And it's like, oh, I'm yelling all the time. I guess stop that.
That's huge. Yeah, absolutely. And I love that exercise, because that's that reflection. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the safety response is, no, I don't yell too much. Mm-hmm. But then you had that space or that awareness within and be like, oh crap, maybe I do yell a lot. Let me check. Because some of us just shut down and we wouldn't entertain, you know, another thought about it, because that defensiveness is so strong within us. So, I mean, props to you for taking that wherewithal and taking that step into what might be a little bit uncomfortable, just admitting, crap, I do yell more than I'd like to.
Yeah. Well, for me,
powerful.
For me, it was, if I wasn't a dad, I wouldn't have cared. I would have just, so what if I yell? I'd deal with it. But it's like, oh no, I'm a dad, so I got to do this. So, just like if you're listening, you got to read with your kids every day.
Right. Yeah. And that's where I like to share. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go finish, please.
I was just going to say, you know, there can be some power to inconsistent consistency. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times when we're starting any kind of, new thing, whether it's a self-help journey or an exercise journey or a weight loss journey or a mindfulness journey, and we say, I'm going to do this every single day, that can be overwhelming. Our system's like, hey, we got so much else going on. What are we doing here? And then so we set this almost unattainable, goal. And then inevitably, if we're committing to doing something every single day, something's going to happen. There's going to be other influences. We might feel under the weather. We might feel tired, whatever. And then we get hard on ourselves because we didn't meet that bar. Mm-hmm. So practicing inconsistent consistency. So we've got a goal, we've got a target, we've got a desire, and we're going to keep going towards that. But we can find more easefulness if we don't hit those daily or weekly benchmarks. So pulling back that lens. Was I able to connect with my kids this week? Yeah, a couple times. Fantastic. Do I want to keep doing that and experiencing more of that? Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. I'm going to keep practicing these things so I keep creating more of that space, but without as much intensity or kind of the judgment or the comparison that a lot of us invite into those types of approaches.
Yeah. Well, man, I think we can chat all day long, but the people I have to talk to next would be upset. So we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about That's Not a Cupcake, and also find out more about radical enlightenment.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So if you're interested in the children's book, it's available on Amazon, also at Itasca Books, ITASCA books.com. And if you're interested in more of the work I'm doing with in evolving the art and science of self-healing, you can find more about me at kevinrussell.guide, and then more about the information and programs at radicalenlightenment.com.
We've had a really wonderful time speaking to the author of That's Not a Cupcake, a really fun picture book from our guest, Kevin Russell. Hey, Kevin, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Jedley, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate that conversation. It's fantastic. Thanks so much.
Well, I'll let you know that this episode of Reading with Your Kids is also brought to you by We're Going on a Space Adventure, written by Marie Nichols. This is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Blasting off and speeding through space, Graham cheers to the moon and beyond. But Bracken quickly learns that Graham has a fear of flying, and that he must manage control of the spaceship. On the moon, they narrowly escape a hideous monster as a crater explodes, and on Mars, they need to outrun Martian creatures or risk becoming their dinner. Hoping to find a friendlier planet, they decide to try Jupiter. Then clank, 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 something is attacking the spaceship. You and your kids are going to love this book. It's fun. It's exciting. It celebrates intergenerational friendships, and we love those. We're Going on a Space Adventure by Marie Nichols. It is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. This episode is brought to you by OnceUponADance.com. Ignite imagination with award-winning dance and movement books. Once Upon a Dance inspires young readers to twirl, leap, and dream with whimsy and wonder. Whether your child enjoys unicorns, bats, zombies, or cats, Once Upon a Dance has a dance-it-out story to get them moving. For more information about this 37 delightful books, please visit OnceUponADance.com or find them on your favorite social media platform. Join us right now from the wonderful state of Arizona, where I bet you it's a lot warmer than it is here in Boston. Our guest is here to celebrate his debut picture book. It's called Everywhere and All the Time, The Reign of King Jesus. Please welcome to the show, Jake Bull. Jake, how are you?
I'm doing well, Jed. Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a joy to be here.
Delighted to have you on. I'm going to go out on a limb and think that this is a faith-based book.
It is. Yeah, you're right. You're right on target. It is a faith-based book. My wife and I, both Christians, we have been just transformed, our lives transformed by the power of the gospel. And we hope for this to be a great encouragement to other Christian families. Of course, anyone, we would love, to explore the book, but Christian families, we hope especially, will be encouraged by it.
So let's talk about the book. Who are we going to meet other than King Jesus?
Yeah. So this is a book that's based on a text of scripture. It comes from Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 through 20. It's more commonly known as the Great Commission. Jesus comes to a mountain, and after he has risen from the grave, and he comes to his disciples, and he says, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me." And he says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and I'll be with you always to the end of the age." So the picture book is, for most of it, it's a walk through all of creation. So nature, all different kinds of, oceans, the woods, different animals, all of those things. And it's really keying in on the idea of Jesus being king over everything. A lot of times Christians will think that, we kind of have our faith that we practice maybe on Sunday or when we're worshiping, and then throughout the rest of the week, maybe we're not quite as involved, or it kind of goes away and then it comes back next Sunday. And Jesus says he has all authority in heaven and on earth. So it walks through all of life. It walks through creation. It walks through families. It walks through your time in the church. It walks through just working. It walks through playing. We talk even about the civil sphere, Jesus being king over all, even governments and nations. It's comprehensive, and that's a good thing. He's a righteous, good king, and he reigns and he rules. So there's a lot of family aspects to it, and it's kind of an all of life, type book.
I love that, the idea of spreading our values to our kids through picture books. I had an experience, Jake, one time. I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast. I made a living doing educational magic shows in schools, churches for decades, and had this opportunity one summer. I was doing a program for just for a recreation program out on a playground, and so the kids, it was basically a Christian community, but there were two camps that came to the show. One was a Jewish camp, and the kids all had their yarmulkes on, and the other was a Muslim camp. And I knew because the girls were wearing the hijabs. And it was a great show. Everybody got along wonderfully. And after the show, the rabbi from the Jewish camp came up and said, "Hey, can you teach the kids a trick?" And I'm Catholic, and I attended a Jesuit high school, and there's an exercise, an St. Ignatius exercise called the Examen, where at the end of the night you think about what happened in your day, and you think about where God was, and when you were happy, where God was when you're happy, when you're sad, what could you learn from that? So I did this, taught this very basic magic trick where the kids take the cards and they shuffle them up, and they pick one pile of cards, and then they deal them out into 4 piles. And at the end, they have to find a specific card. And I decided for this, I said, we're going to see if you can find the king. And of course, they turn over the top card, and there was the king. And that was a wonderful memory, because at that moment, I was able to turn to these kids and say, and the neat thing is that Jews, Muslims, and Christians, we all have the same king. We all believe in the king of Abraham. And that was, I thought it was really wonderful to be able just to remind kids, even though we look at the world through different perspectives and different traditions, that we're all basically part of one beautiful human family.
Yeah, we are all made in the image of God. And I think a lot of times there's of course, the nation we live in, I mean, there's so much diversity, and I really mean that in the fullest sense of the word. There's diversity in all kinds of ways. A lot of times when we have conversations, it's maybe talking about like ethnic or racial diversity. That's one kind, but there's diversity all across the scope. There's intellectual diversity, there's age diversity, there's geographic diversity. And one thing we can say we all have in common is we are made in the image of God. No matter what your beliefs are, where you come from, what our differences or disagreements are, we all have that value and dignity and worth. And that's a beautiful thing. That's a gift from God. And my hope, as a Christian, of course, Jesus, he makes claims about himself. He makes claims to deity. He makes claims. There's the famous one in John chapter 14, where he says, "I'm the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." And I don't view that as bad news. I view that as good news. We have this problem in our lives. We have sin. We've broken God's law, and we're deserving of justice for that. But the good news is that there is a mediator. There's someone who came to bridge the gap between God and between us through his sacrifice, and that's Christ. And our hope is to encourage people with that message. We have, like I said, been transformed by it. And we want to share that with others. And I think it's an important message to get out there today. There's a lot of people who are hurting. There's a lot of difficulty. There's a lot of sadness. There's a lot of hatred and division in the world. And as a Christian, we can have hope because Christ rose from the dead. And we know that one day he's putting all things under his feet. He's putting all evil enemies under his feet. And there's going to be a day where the earth, the Bible says, is filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, like the waters cover the sea. And that's a good thing. We can have hope and joy from that. So that's part of our hope with the book as well, is to help people see this is good news. Gospel, I talked about that earlier. This is good news. We want to believe it ourselves, and we want to share that with others in hopes that they'll believe it too, and have the joy of the Lord. So anyway.
You mentioned a couple of times that you and your wife Becca have been transformed. In what way?
Yeah. Really, in every way. Jesus, for example, in John chapter 3, a lot of people know the famous Bible verse, John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave his only son. Whoever believes in him won't perish, but have eternal life. And in that chapter in the Bible, Jesus is speaking with the Pharisee, Nicodemus, and he says that you have to be born again, or like born a second time. And what that really talks about is becoming a new creature, a totally different person. Another way to say it is that you had desires or affections or likes and dislikes before you came to know Christ. And then after, you have different desires, different affections, different likes, different dislikes, and you become a totally new person. So you're not born physically a second time. We're all just born once. But you are born again, spiritually speaking. So that's happened with us, where we were very much one way before believing in Christ, and now are a different way. So to answer your question more succinctly, it's speaking more of a spiritual rebirth or spiritual regeneration, of course, than it is physical.
Yeah. And where did the idea of writing a children's book come from? Was that the divine inspiration?
It was, yeah, maybe in some ways. We have two little ones, two boys, and really young. One is just actually turned 4, and the other one just turned 1. So we have a house full of 2 rambunctious young boys, and we love reading books to them. You know, I think part of the inspiration was that we love reading books that are encouraging. We love reading books that they love to read, that they find inspiring. You know, a lot of times at that age, they just love the pictures, and it's bright, colorful pictures and all that stuff. So I think that was part of the inspiration. Of course, we're passionate about the gospel message and spreading that. So we kind of married those two things together. Our oldest, he really loves books and reading anyway. So he'll just be on the couch flipping through a book, or now he's listening to books. He has a little Yodo player where he'll listen to books. So that was part of it too, where we're like, wow, he really loves this, and we love reading to him. What if we created our own books, to encourage people with? So kind of a combination of things.
Yeah. And one of the things I love about books and children's books is that it's a really wonderful way to share and instill our values on our kids. You know, if you want to sit down and talk to your kids about the gospel or about safety or nature, whatever, sitting them down and saying, hey, we have to have a conversation. Those words usually go in one ear and out the other. Whereas when you're sitting down and you're experiencing a book together with your kids, it really opens up opportunities for questioning, for conversation, and I just think it's the best way to share our values with our kids.
Yeah, I really resonate with that. We have other books we've read to our, particularly our oldest, that are talking about different, you could call it like virtues. So there's a book that is more based on like the fruit of the Spirit, and it talks about kindness, or self-control and those kinds of things. And the authors of those books, we were pretty inspired by them too. They use story to help drive home the point of like, here's what kindness actually looks like. Here's how we should extend kindness to others. Same thing with self-control. Here's what happens when we don't have self-control, and what it actually looks like to practice these things. So I totally agree. It's a lot easier to say, hey, let's read this book, and their kind of imaginations are captured through the story versus just straight, telling them with words and exactly out the other ear. So I think it's a really powerful way to, like you said, instill our values.
Yeah. And there was another guy who used to teach with stories. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I think it was, Jesus. Yeah.
That's right. And
I was trying to set you up there, Jake.
You did, yeah.
Well,
yeah. And it's funny you bring that up too. It's really good you bring that up, because that's another piece is Jesus is one of the famous passages in the Gospels There's this moment where all these children are coming to Jesus, and the disciples are kind of annoyed. They're saying, get him away, get the children away. He doesn't have time for this. Of course, Jesus' ministry became very public, and he was doing a lot of miracles and preaching and teaching. And Jesus actually rebukes the disciples. He says, no, let the children come to me. The kingdom of heaven belongs to ones like these. And it's just such a powerful moment because he taught in a way that was accessible. He wasn't speaking these really high theological truths that were hard for people to grasp. When he talks about being anxious, he says, look at the birds. Mm-hmm. They don't run around worrying about where their next meal is coming from. Look at the grass. They don't clothe themselves. God provides that. And in the same way, you shouldn't worry either. God will provide what you need. So I love that you brought that up, because the story, the parables, that was one of the main tools, that Jesus used in his ministry.
Yeah. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Everywhere and All the Time, the reign of King Jesus, and find out more about you.
Yeah. So the best place to go would be our website. It's called Kingdom Come Press, all one word, kingdomcomepress.com is the best place. And then you can also find us on Instagram as well. And our handle on Instagram is Jake and Becca, all one word. And Becca is spelled Bekah. So Jake and Becca on Instagram, or kingdomcomepress.com.
We've had a great time speaking to one of the authors of Everywhere and All the Time, the reign of King Jesus. Our guest has been Jake Bull. Jake, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Yeah, thank you, Jed. Really appreciate the time. Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids. I know I did. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing the episode with somebody you love. Leave us a 5-star review, and please be sure to subscribe to the show so you never miss a moment. We'd also love it if you could connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, @readingwithyourkids on Instagram, and @JedleyMagic on Twitter. We have a great YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. You can find all of our Drawing with Your Kids videos on our YouTube channel. You can also catch the podcast on our YouTube channel too. I'm amazed that so many people are listening to podcasts via YouTube. Our website, it's readingwithyourkids.com. Readingwithyourkids.com. Go there, especially if you're an author of a fantastic children's book. Please be sure to visit readingwithyourkids.com. Find out how you can be a guest here in the show and tell thousands of Kidlit fans all over the world about your fantastic children's book. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our wonderful guest, Kevin Russell. Please be sure to check out That's Not a Cupcake. Also want to thank Jake Bull. Please be sure to check out Everywhere and All the Time. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. You're incredible. You're working hard every single day, and you still manage to come home and do what you need to do to make this world a kinder, more empathetic, better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
In a quiet room where the sunlight swirls, a curious cat finds a